Hello, welcome. My name is Reverend Will Bouvel, and I'm joined here again with Father Chris Hardman, where we've been discussing creation spirituality. We're both based here at Church of the Holy Comforter, and here we've been going deeper and deeper into a Celtic tradition that Father Chris has brought us that is now kind of developing into this idea of creation spirituality. We've been looking together at some paths into a deeper knowledge of God. And we've talked before about the Via Positiva, a positive path towards creation. And there's three other paths that are part of this creation spirituality: the Via Negativa, the Via Creativa, and the Via Transformativa. So positive, negative, creative, and transformative. And today I'd like to talk about the Via Negativa. Tell us, this sounds like we're already getting off to kind of a negative start. People don't usually like that in church spaces. They think this is always about positivity. How does the Via Negativa hold us and give us a pathway to God?
Yeah, well, we start with positive because to bring people in, and
Smart.
then we start with the negative. But you have to realize that what we're talking about is life, and life does not always seem positive to us. A lot of times it feels very negative. Things happen, and it's hard to imagine any day that something negative doesn't happen. You say something wrong to somebody, or somebody says something to you, or somebody gets sick, or you feel bad. I mean, the negative is part of our life. It's part of who we are, and if we don't address it, it's like we don't address most of who our life is. And what the way of doing this is really, I think, we say daring the dark, but it's really more like daring the silence, getting in touch with your true self inside. And when things happen to us, things that we get upset about, obviously, it's a time to begin to settle in, allow God to kind of work in us, and to begin to learn from what happened. Why did this happen? What can I do to do that? And think about it that way, but then begin to let go. And that's really the purpose of it, is we hold on to those things so much that they end up ruining our lives out there. That when we are in grief, for instance, it's hard to relate to people the way we usually do because the grief is so bad. And so we need the time of silence as part of our grief process, part of letting go. And Lord, it's hard for that to happen. But the same with other things that happen to us. People we know that are suffering, and we go in prayer and we kind of hold them in our prayers and help them to let go. We're all interconnected, and I think the Spirit works through prayer in that way. And so the Via Negativa is really about getting in touch with that greater sense of God in us. And all of us have had this experience. And not to make light of it, but it's only through suffering that we grow. If everything goes along well all the time, we just stay the same. And it's only through suffering that we can that the Spirit of God can move in us. But to do that, we have to let go of that, let go of what happened, let go of forgive, all those things. And once we do, then God can raise us to a better life. Now, that's not what we don't go into it thinking that way, because then we wouldn't do anything. We would just think, well, God's going to take care of it. But it's really part of the process is getting in touch with God within us, and that takes silence. Meister Eckhart said that, of all the things in the world, the closest things to God, the closest thing to God is silence. And silence really gets us out of all the stuff that's going on, which a lot of it is bad, a lot of good too, of course, but to get to that silence. So there's really two parts, I think, to this. It's engaging in those times of suffering, whether it's our suffering or someone else suffering that's hurting us too. All of that is getting in touch with that, and then also getting in touch with a God who is beyond creation, and that's where the silence comes in. That
Mhm.
that to get in touch with something outside objects, outside reality, you really have to go into the darkness for that.
Yeah, you reframed Matthew Fox's commandment of daring the dark as daring the silence. And I think for a lot of people in silence, that can feel like absence. And when people come to grief or are in places of deep loss or fear, it can feel like God is not with them.
Yeah,
And so silence feels risky because it's like you're willing to look at the fact that you've been abandoned. But I think the wisdom in this tradition is that when you dare that silence, you discover that you are not abandoned, that there is God's presence in those places. It
yeah,
just looks very differently than maybe you were expecting.
right, right. And as we do that, again, we end up finding our soul. Our soul opens up, our soul grows, and we change, from that. And that's part of this whole process. It's not just about doing these things because somebody said so. It's really about finding God in those things, and the God that lifts us up to new life, to seeing things differently, to being able to address someone who's hurt us without being fearful of that. All those things. It takes this silence, this prayer, this kind of sense of being one with God, and truthfully, uh, if we're suffering and we get in touch with that suffering, we're in touch with everybody else too, because most everybody else is suffering as well. We just don't think about it because everybody always gets their bright side. They show it to everybody.
And we were talking about this earlier, but I think when you then can be in touch with your suffering and through that be in touch with other people's suffering because they are so similar,
Yeah.
that is compassion.
Yes, that's compassion.
And we don't arrive at compassion if we can't be in our suffering.
Yes.
If we can't be close to our suffering, then how could we be close to the suffering of others? If our suffering is a threat, well, then of course the suffering of another is a threat too.
Yeah.
This is a key in pastoral care because so much of pastoral care work is about developing your own ability to be in your own difficulties so that you can be with someone else.
Right.
So you don't have to push it away or paper it over with some theology or you can just dare it to be and do that together.
Right.
Yeah.
Very true.
Well, I had one other question about this, which is all of these paths are framed under this idea that we've been exploring of creation spirituality. Why is this Via Negativa? How does it connect to creation?
Well, this is how everything came to be through suffering. If you think about your own spiritual journey, you know that it's through those tough times that you begin to grow. And this is how creation started. It's the Paschal mystery that we talk about all the time, of order, disorder, and reorder. This is the path that God leads us on. This is the path of evolution in our society, and also in creation itself. It's just one Paschal mystery after another, and so to think that we're in the midst of a Paschal mystery just means we're at one with the world. That's the way the world works. We call it love, and it's the path of love. Letting go of our singleness and joining someone in a new relationship. That's a dying and a rising. That's what the Paschal mystery is about.
And just like we were describing how it can be difficult to look at suffering, I think our general culture has a difficulty of looking at death and about loss in all things. But this Paschal mystery makes a revolutionary claim through Jesus's resurrection first, that death is not the end of the story.
Right.
And we see that proved over and over again in nature. Every loss yields new life.
Right.
Why wouldn't it also be true in us?
That's true.
And so this creation idea is to recognize that we are nature. We are part of this process. Even though it's scary to face that loss and those negative spaces and the silence, what might we be becoming by going through periods of loss and absence? That's what feels exciting to me about this.
Yeah, it can be positive too, can it?
Yeah,
In one sense, if you look at it that way, it's not that we want to choose those things.
Yeah,
but because they happen, God's Spirit gets to work.
That's right.
And moves us on.
Well, thank you so much for telling us about this second path, the Via Negativa, and we'll learn more about the other paths in coming videos.
Okay.
Thank you, Father Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us.